All right, so still in 11.2. We're going to do some practice problems and you guys can try some on your own. We'll do a couple of twos and then maybe we'll attempt a three as well. So we're going to write these matrices in the row echelon form, which is that thing we talked about yesterday with the ones and the zeros. And then we're actually going to solve for what x and y and then eventually z is as well. So why do we need this? It's actually another way to solve a system of equations, like Kramer's rule was. Here's yesterday what we said, where the row operations we're allowed to do. We can interchange any rows, we can multiply / divide them by a constant, not zero, and you can replace it by adding a multiple of another row. And this was the row echelon form. So 3 by 3. Also for a 2 by 2, it looks pretty much the same, except we only have 3 we have to really worry about, and then the rest doesn't matter. But 1's on the diagonal, and then a 0 down there. All right, so here's what we're going to use this for. We're going to solve a system of equations, kind of like we did with Kramer's rule, using this row echelon form. We're going to start small and build our way up, because this one you can solve pretty easily with some other methods, but this is a good one to start with. The first thing that we're going to do is write that as an augmented matrix. That just means like a matrix with a little line in it. Right. So let's do that. We're going to write this as 1, 1, 1, -1, and then 8 and 4. Just write it as a matrix. And then there's like 3 things we gotta accomplish here. We need to make this one a 1, which it actually already is, so that's good. This is always going to be the first thing that you check, because that's 1. Since we don't have to do anything to it, we can go ahead and go. This is going to be the second one down here. We're going to try to turn this to a 0. And then the third one is going to be this one. We're going to try to turn that to 1. You have to go in that order, or else like you'll end up just like messing yourself up. Because if you change this one, then you got to use to change that one, and it'll mess things up. If you go in this order, kind of work your way down. If there's another one, then we drop down and do that way as well. All right. So first thing's done. We need to change this to a 0 now. So how we're going to do that? R2 equals. Anybody have an idea how we could get that to be a 0? Mario. Say that again. Okay, well you're not allowed to add and subtract numbers. Yeah? Okay, yeah, essentially that, right. So I always like to think of them as adding. So the other thing that we need to do is make this a -1, right? So if we just, it's going to be the same thing as minus it. So negative R1 plus R2. It would be the same thing as just saying R2 minus R1. It would be fine. Yeah. So we're going to multiply this basically by -1. Would be the same thing as saying this one minus that one. Because remember, you can't add or subtract. You can multiply, but you can't add or subtract these. All right. So then when we do that, when we make it look like this, we're going to just keep the top row. 1, 1, 8. I'll write out this first one, but we're not going to do this for every one because then it gets way too long. What we're doing is negative the first one, R1, so -1 plus the original R2. 1. So the negative of this one plus this one. And we're going to do negative of this one plus this one. And negative of this one plus this one. Okay. So we did negative row 1 plus row 2. Negative row 1 plus row 2. Negative row 1 plus row 2. Right? Got that? Now what that does is it makes this now a 0. Top row. 0. And this is -2. And this is -4. And again, we'll start skipping this step. It's a little bit too much to write. We write that every time. So now, last thing we need to do is change that to a 1. So whenever we do that, we're going to be multiplying by something. So we're going to say R2 equals, what do we multiply or divide? You're going to think of dividing. What would we divide that by? Yeah, it would be 1. Yeah, so multiply by negative half or divide by 2, right? Same thing. So multiply by negative half, divide by 2. So we're just always going to multiply by the reciprocal of whatever that is. So if it was 3, we would do 1/3. So that means we're going to multiply this whole row 2 by negative half. Keep row 1. 0 times negative a half is 0. Negative 2 times negative a half is 1. Negative 4 times negative a half. And also just think of it as dividing. So it's like negative 4 divided by negative 2. Which is 2. Of this one. This is the one we're changing. Yeah. Good question. Right? Now we're done with the matrix. We got it in row echelon form. We got the 1s and the 0. So now this is the new thing, is we're going to write this as an equation again. So we're going to write it back out like that. So this is our x, and this is our y, and this is our answers. So we start out 1x plus 1y, there's y, equals 8. And then we got a 0 for the x's, so we're not going to write anything there. We got 1y, so just get y equals 2. So what we did is we solved for y. Y is 2. And now we're just going to take this, and we plug it up into there. This y is 2, so we have x plus 2 equals 8. Subtract the 2 over, and x equals 6. So our answer is 6, 2. And you can check your answer pretty easily. 6 plus 2 is 8. 6 minus 2 is 4. I know that took longer than it would have if we just would have used like elimination or something, but we're building up that skill so we can eventually do hard ones. And you're going to have to start coming up with these row operations as well. I'll train to get you there. All right, let's try this one. The first thing you got to do is just write out your augmented matrix there. Now we don't have a 1 there this time, so we got to start with that. Anytime you want to turn something to a 1, though, you're just going to multiply by the reciprocal. So what are we going to multiply row 1 by? Yeah, good. So we're going to say R1 equals a half R1. So again, we're changing this one, so we're multiplying by the reciprocal. And this is the same thing as dividing by 2. We just divide all of the top row by 2. 1, negative 2, negative 1. Get the bottom row. Next one we need to change is this 3. We need to make that a 0. Whenever you change something to a 0, you're going to multiply another row and then add it. So we're going to say R2 equals what? Yeah. Good. Negative 3 times R1 plus R2. We're just going to always multiply the row above it here by negative whatever this is. It's negative 3, so that when we add these, we get 0. So we'll rewrite first row. Now, you can write these in a calculator if you want to, but I'm not going to write all the steps because it will get way too long to do that. We're doing negative 3 times R1, so negative 3 times 1 is negative 3, plus 3 is 0. And we do negative 3 times negative 2, that's 6. 6 plus 2 is 8. Negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3, plus 3 is 6. So again, if you want to type that in the calculator, you can. What we're doing is negative 3 times this, plus this. Negative 3 times this, plus this. Negative 3 times this, plus this. Alright, now we got that as 0. So our last thing we need to do is change that 8 to a 1. Change anything to a 1, we always just multiply by the reciprocal, right? So we're going to do R2 is 1/8 R2. Keep the top row. 0, 0 times an 8 is 0. 8 times an 8 is 1. 6 times 1/8 is just 6 eighths, which will reduce in a second. So now we're good because we got the 1s and the 0. And now write it as an equation. Becomes 1x, just x, minus 2y equals negative 1. 0 x's, so just do 1y equals 6/8, which is 3 halves, which are 3/4. Alright, so we got y. Now we take y and we plug it into the other equation. X minus 2 times 3/4 is negative 1. We've got a solvable equation here. Multiply straight across. X minus 6/4 equals negative 1. Again, if you want to use a calculator for this, you can. Negative 1 plus 6/4 or 3 halves. What does that equal? Let's say 1/2 or half. Yeah. So our answer then is 1/2, comma 3/4. Starting to get the hang of it a little bit. Kind of the same pattern, right? Change this one, you might need to multiply by something. Then we need to change this to a 0, so we multiply the row 1 by something and add it. Then we need to make this to a 1, so we multiply by something. So it does follow a pattern once you start to get it down here. All right, do you want to do, well, I guess we can do one more. One more, and then we'll try a 3x3. I'm not going to make you do a lot of 3x3s today, but I want you to just try one. See how it is. Just one, just to try. I'm just going to give you 3 problems. So hopefully, yeah, that's okay. I'm going to give you some time in class to work on it, so we're just going to do. All right, let's try one more of these. And it does get faster and faster each time you do it. Two, three, 6, and 1, and 1. Well, let's take a slightly different approach on this one. What do we want to do for the first one? Maybe an operation we haven't used yet. Which one of these haven't we used yet? Yeah, we haven't changed any of the rows yet, right? Since this one has a 1 in the bottom row, see it already has a 1 here, we can switch these rows. We just flip-flop the whole row. So we can just say R2, or actually we'll say R1. It doesn't matter either way you want this. R1 equals R2. We're just going to move R2 up. So 1, -1, half. 1, 2, 3, 6. We just got to make sure you keep all the numbers together. And then we don't have to do any math, we just switch them. So we got the first one done. Now we need to change this to a 0. So let's think, how do we write this? R2 equals what? Well, we're going to multiply this row. Well, we're going to change it to a 0, not a 1 now. So to get to a 0, we've got to multiply the row above it by the opposite. So it would be -2 R1 plus R2. So we're multiplying the top one by -2, because then when we add it to 2, we'll get 0. So we're making it to 0. Always do something like this when we try to get it to 0. And then just multiplying if we're going to get it to 1. So we'll keep the top row. So -2 times this, -2 plus 2 is 0. -2 times -1 is +2 plus 3, 5. -2 times a half is just -1 plus 6 is 5. So we just gotta do one more. We gotta make this a 1. Whenever we try to make something a 1, we just multiply it. So we say row 2, multiply by the reciprocal, 1/5 row 2. The top row, 1 equals 1 half. 0 times a fifth is 0. Half times a fifth is 1. Half times a fifth is 1. Good? Get x minus y equals half. And then y equals 1. So we got y. Take this and then plug it in there. X minus 1 equals half. We just add the 1 over to get us 3 halves. And the answer is 3 halves. That's getting pretty easy now, right? Just 2 by 2s, not too bad. Maybe you wouldn't say easy yet, but it's good, man. All right, let's just do a 3 by 3 here for fun. And then you guys can try one out. And then Monday we'll do mostly, and we'll just do all 3 by 3s on Monday. Just be careful a little bit when you write out this matrix, and same with your homework one. The beginning ones, they have lots of zeros in them to make it easy. Like this one's missing some variables. It's still a 3-variable equation, just like this top row doesn't have a z, this middle row doesn't have a y, and this one doesn't have a x. That's just to make it a little easier for you. And we still have to put the zeros in for placeholders wherever we don't have a variable. So if there's no variable in that one, we got to put it in the right column. So we're going to have 1, -1, 0 for the z in the first row. 2, 0 for the y in the second one. 3. And the third row doesn't have a x. 0, 2, 1. Now we're going to do the same strategy. We're going to start up in the top left. We're going to try to do this one first, and then we'll move down to that 2. Then we'll move over to the 0. Then we'll move down to this one, and then we'll move over to that one, and then to that one. So we're going to go in that order. Going down, down, low. Yeah, it's going to be a good place to start. So, if I ever noticed, I'm looking at this, we're going to end up with 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, right? The idea. This one, we can move up to here, and this one needs to be a 0 anyhow, and that one up there is a 0. So if we just flip-flop those rows, it might take us a little time, right? And just switch those to begin with. So let's go ahead and do that. So first, we're just going to switch the row to the row 3. So I'm going to say R2 equals R3. Switch those rows. Anytime you can get one of them to change without actually doing it in math, that's a good thing. So we're actually getting a little bit closer to that. So our first one is the 1, that's good. The next one would be 0, we just took care of that. So then the next one we'll move to is this one. We've got to make that 2 a 1. Anytime you change something to a 1, you're just going to multiply. So we're going to say R2 equals, multiplied by the reciprocal. R2 equals 1/2 R2. So to get from this to this, we just switch those 2 rows. Because this one already had a 0, if we switched it, it would already give us a 0 there. And then this one, we're going to need a 0 down here anyhow. So we need to switch them, so we're going to have to do it now. So then we'll multiply that second row by 1/2. You always want to make sure you're in the right order, because if you start changing this stuff, it's not going to stay there necessarily. You got to go in a certain order, or else you're going to end up changing the numbers back. Right. So then we got 1, 0. This is just dividing by 2 on all these. 0, 1, 1/2, and 2. And 2, 0. So we got 3 of them done. All right, next thing we need to work on is this 2 here. And then make that a 0. So what do we do? We're going to start with R3. Now we're at 3 rows. Anytime we make something a 0, we're going to multiply another equation, right? And then add it. Which equation? So we multiply the top row or the middle row, I think? Yeah, the top one, because we need this. We need to add a -2 to it. Since this is a 1, we can just do -2 times that, right? So -2 R1 plus R3. So I'm going to recopy the first 2 rows. They're good, so I'm just going to rewrite those. All right, and let's go through this part. So -2 times 1 is -2. Plus 2 is 0. Now, unfortunately, this is going to change. It won't be a 0 anymore, but it's all right. That's what we have to do. So this would be the -2 times -1 is +2. +2 plus 0 is 2. -2 times 0 is negative. There's a 0. Then add up -3. And then -2 times 12 is 6. -12 plus 16 minus 4. This gets a little more confusing when we got an extra row involved there. Now we're going to do 2 more things. Next up, we got to get this back to a 0. So the question is, now we're going to do row 3, right? R3 equals which row we're going to multiply and add to it. Yeah, the second. What does the first one not work? What can we just do the first one again? Yeah, if we multiplied row 1 by something, say we multiplied 1 by 2, if we said 2R1 and added it, it would make this a 0, but then this one's going to change back to a 2. It won't work. But if we do the second row, this is a 0, so whatever we multiply by is going to be 0. Just adding 0 and 0. Yeah, we definitely got to do the second row there. We're going to do negative 2R2 plus R3. It's important we choose the second row now. Alright, the first two rows stay the same. Just going to recopy those. Alright, so then we're doing negative 2 times 0, which is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Plus 2 is 0, which are 1s. Negative 2 times a half is negative 1. Negative 1 plus negative 3 is negative 4. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Plus 4 is 0. We're almost done. We got one more to do. Erase this. Alright, so last one, change that to 1, we just multiply by the reciprocal, right? So we're going to say R3 equals negative 1/4 R reciprocal. And then we should have everything I want. Multiply that by negative 4, we get 1. 0 times negative 4 is 0. So that's an easy operation. And now we got it there, we got it in row echelon form. So now we're going to rewrite their equation, the whole system here. We got x minus y. There's no z, so we don't rewrite anything. It's x minus y equals 6. Here we don't have an x, we just got y plus a half z. The z column equals 2. And here we just have 1z, so z equals 0. So we got z. So then we're just going to keep plugging up. Plug this into here. That just becomes y plus 0, because 0 comes down to 0. It's 2, so y equals 2. And then we're going to take this and plug it in up here. X minus 2 is 6. And then over x equals 8. And then we'll write out order triple 8 to 0. Did it. And let's go ahead and just check a couple of them real quick. One on the top, 8 minus 2 is 6, that's good. 16 minus 0, 16, 4 plus 0 is 4. That works on them. So I'll have you try one of these. If you get bogged down on this, if you get too confused, it's okay, but give it a shot, and tomorrow or Monday we'll work on some more. The problems that I want you guys to try, I just put them on classroom there. So the first two are 2 by 2s, 48 and 50. And then 40 and 48, and then 50 is a 3 variable system. So be careful on 50, make sure you put zeros in the right places. It's really similar to the one we just did. So you got to do 40, and 48, and then number 50. Okay. And you got the rest of the time to work on it. Work with someone. You guys keep each other on track.